There is one skill that separates people who stay broke from people who build real wealth, and it has nothing to do with intelligence and nothing to do with luck. It comes down to mastering the psychology of money. I went from 100 pounds overweight, broke, arrested 6 separate times, to building companies worth hundreds of millions of dollars. I am not telling you this because I am special. I am telling you because I am not. The thing that actually changed my life was that I stopped letting a broke mindset steer every decision I made. If you want to build genuine wealth, you need to dismantle 6 limiting beliefs that are quietly keeping you stuck. Let us walk through every single one of them. The first is what I call your money script. Every financial choice you make, the job you accept, what you charge for your work, how guilty you feel the moment you spend a certain amount, all of it is being run by a subconscious script that, in most cases, you did not even consciously write. This is not just a theory. Financial psychologists have actually identified 4 distinct money scripts that reliably predict financial behavior, and the unsettling part is that these scripts were installed in childhood, long before you had any real understanding of what money even was. As I run through these 4, think honestly about which one is operating inside you. The first type is the money avoider. This person believes, somewhere deep down, that money is bad and that they personally do not deserve it. They will quietly sabotage their own success without even realizing it. They often gravitate toward helping professions that pay very little, and they feel genuine guilt about wanting more. If you grew up hearing that rich people are greedy or that money is the root of all evil, that is almost certainly the script wired into your head right now. The second type is the money worshiper. This person believes money is the key that unlocks happiness and solves every problem. They chase it relentlessly, and yet somehow never feel like they have enough. They hoard. They put work above relationships, always convinced that just a bit more money will finally be the number that satisfies them. I haven't made enough yet. I need $1 million. Now it's 10 million. Now it's 100 million. The third is the money status script. People carrying this one attach their entire sense of self-worth to their net worth. They overspend to maintain an image. They hide their real financial picture, sometimes even from a spouse, when the numbers do not match the story they want to tell. They feel a quiet anxiety whenever someone nearby appears wealthier than they are. This is the classic keeping up with the neighbors trap, and the research on it is sobering. This particular script is directly linked to lower well-being and greater unhappiness, because you have tied your worth to an endless comparison you can never actually win. The fourth type is the money vigilant. These are chronic savers, people who live well beneath their means, yet they carry constant anxiety about their financial future regardless of how much they have actually accumulated. They tend to be secretive about money, and they never feel truly safe, even sitting on a comfortable cushion. When I examined these 4 honestly, I recognized myself most in the money vigilant category, which probably looks strange from the outside given everything people assume when they see me. But I will be straight with you. I spend a small fraction of what I actually have. When my net worth crossed $100 million, I still resisted spending more than a couple million on a house. I rented for 3 years during that stretch and did not own a home at all. That is what this script feels like, never feeling secure, no matter the size of the number in front of you. And it surfaces in odd little ways. If my business has a couple of slower months, even though it changes literally nothing about my personal finances, since I do not draw a salary from it, I start cutting back instinctively. I stop buying. I tell my team, don't buy that. Why are we even considering it? Let's go through the budget and trim whatever we don't need. Eventually, I recognize this as an old survival pattern from my past that had no business running my present. So now, the instant I feel that old urge to pull back out of fear, I deliberately go spend instead. It might sound like a worse habit on paper, but what I am actually doing is retraining my own brain, telling it, this reaction is irrational, and I am not going to follow your orders this time. I spend through the discomfort specifically to prove to myself that it is safe, because the evidence consistently shows that it is. Whatever fear is firing inside my head has nothing to do with what is actually true in the real world. So here is the exercise for you. Think back to the phrases that surrounded you growing up. Money doesn't grow on trees. Be grateful for what you have. Rich people are greedy. None of those are lessons. They are simply other people's beliefs that got copied into your subconscious, and once they take root there, they quietly dictate everything. The jobs you pursue, the rates you charge, what you think you deserve, when you feel anxious versus excited about spending. Write down your very first memory involving money. What did the adults around you say about it? How did they act around it? That memory is almost certainly the root of your current script. And the moment you can name it clearly, you gain the power to rewrite it. Something like, money is simply a tool that creates freedom for me and lets me help more people, can become your new script. Once that new sentence replaces the old one and you start pairing it with genuine positive emotion, your outward financial behavior starts realigning to match it. The second limiting belief is what I call the wealth ceiling. Here is the blunt truth about it. You will find a way to sabotage a $200,000 opportunity if deep down you still see yourself as someone who only deserves $50,000 opportunities. Why does this happen? Because the amount of money you hold is governed by your self-image, in exactly the same way your relationships and your living situation tend to match how you see yourself. The research here is consistent. Your self-concept functions like a thermostat. If you identify as someone who earns $100,000, you will unconsciously work to hold that exact temperature. You will not chase anything meaningfully higher. And here is the revealing detail. If you happen to earn $150,000 one year, you will likely find ways to spend the extra $50,000. If you drop to $80,000, you will grind and stress until you climb back to your set point of $100,000. I lived this directly. I got stuck for years at around $85,000 in my first job and built an entire identity around being the scrappy one, the one who survives, who gets by. I understood logically that I could earn more, but the instant I actually crossed into a higher bracket, I would start competing in ways that drained the new money right back out. And so many times, right as I was about to break through to a new level, I would unconsciously sabotage the moment, flooding myself with anxiety about messing it up, about whether I could even sustain it. I did not understand at the time that I was simply adjusting my own internal thermostat back down to where my identity told me I belonged. So here is your move. Write the sentence, I am the kind of person who, and finish it with total honesty based on your current financial identity. I overspend. I underspend. I save obsessively. I save nothing. Then draw a line beneath it, and on the other side write, I am the kind of person who builds and manages wealth with ease. You do not need to feel like that person today. You do not need to act like them yet either. Just write the sentence and let it sit there without flinching. From now on, every time you face a financial decision, pull that page back out. The moment your self-image starts expanding through repetition, your income tends to follow it. The third limiting belief is buying liabilities while believing you are buying assets, or simply never learning the difference between the two in the first place. Most of us were quietly trained to consume rather than to build, and that single habit keeps an enormous number of people permanently stuck. Robert Kiyosaki summed it up plainly in Rich Dad, Poor Dad. The wealthy buy assets, while the middle class buys liabilities and mistakes them for assets. The whole concept is actually simple. An asset puts money into your pocket. A liability takes money out of it. Most people spend their entire financial lives accumulating liabilities and then wonder why they never get ahead because they keep asking, can I afford this? Instead of asking, will this pay me back? Here is how that plays out practically. Your car, a liability. It loses value the second you drive away, and then it demands insurance, fuel, and ongoing repairs. The house you personally live in, also a liability, controversial as that sounds, but true. Mortgage payments, property tax, insurance, maintenance, and it produces zero income for you. A course that teaches you a real marketable skill, an asset because it pays you back through your increased earning power. A rental property, an asset because it generates income every single month. A designer handbag, unfortunately a liability since it depreciates and produces nothing. Equipment for your business, an asset if it actively helps generate more revenue, a liability if it just gathers dust in a corner. Once I started filtering every single purchase through that one lens, asset or liability, my wealth genuinely began compounding because I realized something uncomfortable. Cash sitting untouched in a bank account is itself a liability, quietly losing value to inflation over time. That realization pushed me to start investing seriously in things that generate income, in skills that increase my earning capacity, and in business assets that produce returns. So here is your task. Pull up your last 10 purchases and label each one honestly, asset or liability. Then commit that before your next purchase, you ask that exact question first. Will this put money into my pocket eventually, or will it simply take money out? The fourth limiting belief is one of the toughest to fully shake, and I still notice it creeping in occasionally in strange, small ways. It is the scarcity mindset. This might sound dramatic, but operating from scarcity genuinely makes you think less clearly in the moment. You are always operating from one of two modes, scarcity or abundance. And there is no reason to feel ashamed here, because humans are biologically wired towards scarcity by default. The real question is which mode you train yourself to lean toward, and that single choice determines more than almost anything else how much money you eventually make. The scarcity brain whispers that there is never enough, that you must guard what little you have, that if someone else gains, it somehow means less remains for you us. Picture what that meant tens of thousands of years ago. If a rival group controlled all the berries, your family genuinely needed more berries to survive, because the supply really was limited. The problem is that your brain now applies that exact same ancient logic to modern money, which is not actually fixed in supply at all. New money is being created and earned constantly, every single day, all around the world. And here is the part that should genuinely concern you. Leaning into scarcity physically narrows your cognitive bandwidth. Your decision-making gets worse. Your ability to plan long-term collapses. You can only register whatever value is sitting directly in front of you right now. People trapped in scarcity hoard their money, refuse to invest it, think purely short-term, and treat every new opportunity as a hidden threat rather than a genuine possibility. Abundance thinking sounds completely different. There is always more available to create. I can afford to invest in myself. I can take calculated, intelligent risks because opportunities are everywhere and the total pie is not actually fixed. For me personally, in the earliest years of running a business, roughly the first 3, I was terrified to spend on anything that would have genuinely upgraded my life or my company because some part of my brain kept whispering, what if this all disappears tomorrow? The real turning point came when I understood that money today is essentially infinite and constantly renewable, while skills, relationships, and real opportunities all compound over time when you invest in them. The more I poured into myself and into my business, the more came back, often many multiples over. The clearest test of this came when I hired a business coach for $40,000 a month, at a point when my entire company was only bringing in $50,000 a month. My scarcity brain screamed that I was about to torch everything I had built. My abundance brain pointed out something else entirely. You went from $10,000 a month to $30 to $40, and this exact investment is built specifically to push you even higher next month. I made the deliberate choice to listen to the second voice. That same coach ended up being the reason I scaled that company to the point where I eventually sold it for tens of millions of dollars. So here is how you build this muscle yourself. Notice with real precision the exact moment you are choosing fear over possibility. The instant the thought, I can't afford this, surfaces, immediately reframe it into, how could I afford this? The second you stop asking, how do I protect what I already have, and start asking, how do I create more, you are operating from a fundamentally different level of thinking, and you quietly stop sabotaging your own financial future. The fifth limiting belief is loss aversion, and this single bias is the reason you keep clinging to failing investments, keep avoiding sensible risks, and keep staying exactly where you are. Groundbreaking research from Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky proved that the psychological pain of losing $100 hits roughly twice as hard as the pleasure of gaining that same $100 feels good. Losing simply registers as worse than winning registers as good. This single imbalance explains why we cling to losing stocks hoping for a recovery instead of cutting losses cleanly. It explains why we stay trapped in jobs we have outgrown, stay in relationships that have stopped working, avoid asking for the raise we deserve, and avoid investing altogether, because the fear of potential loss consistently outweighs the appeal of potential gain. I personally stayed in a genuinely miserable job for roughly 2 years longer than made any sense, purely because walking away felt like accepting a loss. The bitter irony is that staying cost me far more in the end. money, energy, mental health, time that is permanently gone, because the fear of loss simply drowned out the logic of leaving. Your brain's core programming is built to protect what you currently hold, not to chase what you could eventually have. That single wiring explains why most people never take the risks that real wealth requires, and then they blame themselves for it, when really, they are just running default human software. Here is how you interrupt that pattern. Reframe every loss as tuition. If a failed venture cost you $50,000, the abundant version of that story is that you paid $50,000 for an education that will eventually make you millions. The moment I adopted that frame personally, losses stopped having power over me emotionally. Just recently, I was negotiating a deal with roughly a $3 million gap between two competing valuations, and I ultimately sided with the other party because I recognized that I should have set clearer terms much earlier in that relationship. When I retold that story afterward, I said it without flinching. I paid $3 million to learn that particular lesson, and honestly, I would pay it again. The sixth and possibly most important limiting belief to break is what I call the time trap. Most people spend their entire lives trying to save money, and that exact habit is what quietly prevents them from ever making serious money. The irony is that money can multiply indefinitely. Time cannot. That single fact is why your focus should shift from saving money to protecting and multiplying your time. Here is the math underneath it. If your actual work generates $100 an hour, then any task worth less than $100 an hour that you insist on doing yourself is quietly draining your wealth. Spend 2 hours cleaning your own house instead of paying someone $50 to do it, and you did not save $50 at all. You actually lost $150 because 2 hours of your real hourly value, minus the $50 you avoided spending, still nets out as a genuine loss. Wealthy people grasp this intuitively. They bring in assistants, meal prep services, and housekeepers, not out of laziness, but because they understand precisely where their time creates the most value and they refuse to spend it anywhere else.